And so I feel really excited about the topic that we have for today because you know that this is something that is very, very, very near and dear to my heart. And I feel like it's very near and dear to your heart as well. Um, we're going to be talking about our spiritual gifts. And that's a big
Yeah.
deal because I know that from my own experiences, there is just like so much controversy around spiritual gifts, what they are, who has them, what they mean, how we're allowed to utilize them. If somebody is utilizing them in particular ways that some people don't agree with, then they interpret it as like dark and evil. And so I really just want to have this really powerful conversation so that we can eliminate a lot of confusion. And I think that's what's so great about this particular podcast is that we have like this raw truth, this honesty. I don't have any fear of exposure or vulnerability here at all. I just want to talk about the things that are important because there's so many people out there that embody their spiritual gifts but also feel like they are ashamed of their spiritual gifts because people have told them they're going to hell because they have spiritual
Yeah.
gifts. So I'm curious, like, what do you think about that? Especially like, so I'm the mystic of this duet, right? Like I'm much more mystical in my practice. I don't have a particular religion I align with. I love Christian mysticism. I love Jewish mysticism. I have studied Hinduism and just like cultures all around the world, really. And I have found so many beautiful things in all of these cultures. But particularly with Christianity, I have been fear-mongered. I have been shamed. I have basically been told by people that I'm going to hell, that I am conspiring with the devil, that I'm channeling demons. And I'm just really sick of this because spiritual
Yeah.
gifts are in the New Testament and spiritual gifts are talked about in the book of Corinthians. So as
Yeah.
a Christian, as a
I mean,
Catholic,
Paul, a- and I wonder if that was a lot of them trying to get pagans to convert to Catholicism when Paul wrote all these letters to the Corinthians and, the Ephesians and all these different things that kind of when he was like forming the church. But it's funny because I think I've told you when I sent you the one on Pentecost. In our Bible, it says spiritual gifts, but then when I looked at some of the Protestant Bibles, spiritual is taken out of it. And I was actually listening to a really good podcast this past weekend that talked about spiritual gifts, and there's like a huge list. There's like 15. So like
mhm,
everyone thinks spiritual gifts is just like if you are psychic or you're a medium or you prophesize, but there's actually a lot more spiritual gifts. It just means it's from God. Like that's it. And so some people have like I guess like one of the spiritual gifts is like of speech, like being able to
yes,
speak. And a lot of times people go up there and they'll just say this whole speech and they don't even like have anything written, and really that's like God speaking through, and that's what priests do when they do the homily. A lot of them probably write it out really, but a lot of times it's just bullet notes, and they just kind of like before the homily, they kind of pray like, God, let your words speak through me. And that is just the same as somebody who just is, a medium or psychic. It's just coming from, I guess, like a different place of what's acceptable or not acceptable. But there's like 15 spiritual gifts. Some is charity. That's supposed to be a spiritual gift. Like people who just have this wanting to just give to people. So, um, I
well,
don't
and the
know. I
same
mean, there's a
joy.
lot. There's also there's something in Romans that talks about spiritual gifts, and then yeah, Corinthians. So it's in the Bible, and it's so funny because you look back. I'm gonna get a lot of hate for this, but I love the Passion of the Christ, like the Mel
Yeah,
Gibson version, right? And
yeah,
so they say that they killed him for witchcraft and being a sorcerer, sorcery. And it's just interesting to me that every time I watch it and I just think how many Christians today would have just followed what the church leaders said and just would be right along being like, they're a witch, crucify him. He's doing sorcery. He's doing I mean they literally say he was doing works of the devil. It's literally what the Jews accused him of. And to watch it now, every time I watch it, that is always kind of what comes to mind is with spiritual gifts is, would you have just, if you think that way, I have a hard time, not in my mind, I don't say it, I don't speak to it, but in my mind being like, and you would have been one of the ones that crucified Jesus. You would have been the ones yelling, "Crucify him," right
Or
along, and it kinda seems very, hypocritical, I guess.
it is because
Yeah.
um in John, he says, "You can do all I can do and more." And when I
Yeah.
read that, you know that I'm not like this, I'm not a Bible person, but I do read to to learn certain things because I think so much has been taken out of context and so much is subjective. And so, me as just kind of like this mystic philosopher, um, this channel, all of these different things, it's like, well, let me get a feel for this because I am not a man, but I do not think I have to be a man to understand the word of God. And I do not think I have to be a man to be able to channel that energy through my body. And I have found that it is much easier for the vessel of a female to be a channel of God's wisdom than it is for a male to be a channel of God's wisdom. The way that we hold our energy is very different. And the way that we
Yeah.
can alchemize things is very different. And, when we look at the difference of what was said in Deuteronomy, you know how I feel about this, versus what was said in Corinthians,